All right. I'll get started here. Regarding from yesterday, what I told the players today, that the best teams don't need losses to learn the lessons. And they learn all the intended lessons in the wins too. And I do believe that so much of the first month of the NFL season is about who can learn the lessons the fastest. And we'll definitely be a team that will improve week to week. And we're definitely on to Cincinnati, but we need to stay on us for a minute and make sure, although we're a new team, that's learning, but we can't have mistakes that repeat, in a week or another week. So those are really important topics for us to continue to improve. So all that said, I'll get rocking with you guys and we can get started.
Go ahead, Con.
Dan, let's start with the run game. Is what you saw yesterday, why was it working so well? And is that starting to create the kind of identity that you're seeking?
I was really pleased to see some of the runs, the short yardage ones, John, that turned into some big plays. Those were some ones that I just felt it was strong and aggressive, but it's going to take a while. I think the whole NFL in that space, the line of scrimmage work, you'll get better in the run game, as the season progresses. The combination blocks, the traps, the pulling, the movements. But I do love what both Brian and Austin bring to the team. They're different, but they both have unique things, and getting to know them and learn them and what they can do great has been one of the things I've really enjoyed on this early part of the season.
And then kind of along the lines of what you were saying just earlier, the red zone offense and then the defense and some of the runs there. What were some of the bigger issues in those two areas for you?
Yeah, on the let's start on the first one, the touchdown. We've really got to be better on the first one that defensively we allowed. The term you've heard it, crack replace. And so when one trap block happens, that you got to be ready to step in and get there. And so not to be able to deliver on that one down in the red zone, that was a bummer for sure. We misfit, I would say probably 2 or 3 that caused some of their stronger runs, but by and large, I was pleased. I felt, John, that the effort felt more like us. Not to say it was completely true to our identity yesterday, but it felt a lot more like us and moving in that way. So I was pleased with that. I felt it was more physical. There was better hitting. There was better tackling. To say we were there, hell no. But it was a lot better and trending in the right space.
Thank you.
Go to Nikki and Julian.
Hi, Dan. I know you've talked quite a bit about the pre and post snap penalties.
Yes.
But are you able to put your finger on why the false starts in particular keep popping up, and how do you go about fixing something like that?
Yeah, those are the ones. So I would call like the pre and post snap ones, like they'll fall under discipline, Nikki. And those are the ones that we have to get rid of, because there could be a check at the line of scrimmage and you jumped, like, hey man, like we're going to get into the best play, have the discipline to stay in it. Like most things, more practice at it for sure. Even if you have to check in and out of a play that you don't need to for that simple purpose of doing it right. More often I found the false starts are, I'm wanting to go too quickly. I'm just get the check, get to the call to go. I can live, you don't want them, but I can live with the combative ones. I can live with a holding or a DPI. I didn't like the one on Nick on the opening kickoff, but when you're trying to be physical, that part I can live with. The pre and the post snap ones, that's a no bueno for me. So we'll really, kind of focus in on that. The false starts were the ones that set us back in this game from a penalty point of view.
And Zach Ertz had a nice game. I mean, what have you seen from him in your time with him? And, that one catch in particular where he pretty much ripped it out of the defender's hands. I mean, what was your view of that?
Yeah, I was really impressed with Zach's performance yesterday. We call those 50-50 balls, and he made certain it was not going to be that. But I thought, even like on the very first third down, there was a called penalty against him. I just felt his presence, Nikki, in this game more than others. He'll always be a factor in 2-minute in the red zone and the things that make him him. But I just felt his presence really strongly in this game. He was really dialed in, really ready to go. And the catches, the movements that he did, I thought they were really on point.
Ben?
Hey, Dan, just curious, after watching the tape, what were your thoughts on your pass coverage yesterday?
Well, I thought it was better in terms of communication first off then. At the Tampa game, we had a couple routes that we didn't match, quite like we'd like. So that part was significantly better. To see us, stay on top of routes and do things, they did a nice job of trying to get some play action shots, but you can live with the ones that are comebacks. And even if it's a, 10 or 15-yard comeback, but you're on top of the route. But the ones that go over the top of your head, those are the ones that you can't live with. And so I was pleased to see that come into life more. I felt the guy's speed in the game, and I thought Quan did a good job coming out of the middle field again. That is one of the real strengths for him.
And as somebody who obviously is steeped in the defensive side, they targeted Malik Neighbors 18 times yesterday, and we see some teams just no matter what, they're throwing it to their guy. What is it that allows some teams to do that where other teams fans will always scream, or maybe reporters too, hey, get that guy the ball? What is it allowing them to do it when it's kind of going in that direction?
Yeah, I think if you're going to be intentional in that spot, then most teams, Ben, will move the player around to where, the first or second read could go. I was certainly impressed by Neighbors. When you see him in person, you feel his size, you feel his strength, you feel his speed that you can go. And so I think he's going to be an excellent player, or is an excellent player, but I was most impressed just by the size and speed of him. So anybody that can play inside, outside, that takes a lot of work to do. Oftentimes you'll see route combinations where they're going to throw, this is where the read is, man or zone, and where it can go. And then other teams will say, we're going to put that player into that spot. And it takes a certain skill set to be able to do that. And he certainly is one that can.
Sam.
Was it intentional to have Jaden throw really quickly, a lot of horizontal routes like before the year, or is it just how it's kind of worked out these last two games?
Yeah, I think as you're going through it, Sam, like we're still learning too. And Jaden's just going into his second game. We had some ones down the field that we would have liked to have seen him take. Some of the ones even on the scrambles to remain a passer as you're coming closer towards the line of scrimmage to throw it down the field. You're probably referring to some of the RPOs that would have worked in there. One of the things I did like about, the way that we did able to control the possession of the ball. I think there was probably 35 runs and 23 completions. And if you're 55, 56, I think we ended up being like 58, somewhere in that neighborhood, Sam, what then happens is time of possession, now can become a factor, more plays. And so although we missed the mark in the red zone, I was pleased to see us, taking care of the ball and having long extended drives. So we didn't punt. We kicked a hell of a lot, which trust me, after what this team's been through, like I'm not bitching about making field goals. Okay. But I will say that the completion, the poise of Jaden and putting the ball at the right spot, that's a really big deal. And I think the more we play, like we are still a new team together, the more reps, the more game experience that we get, these are really valuable like times for us. And so the games are so important, not just because of the win-loss, but like how we want to play. So I just kind of anticipate us continuing this trajectory upwards.
Kind of to that point, what did you think of the pre-snap communication, especially when you guys went no huddle? And because I know a couple of the false starts were when you guys went no huddle, was that an influencing factor there? And I guess, what did you think of the progress in that area?
I felt like coaches and players did a good job communicating. That was one of the things, if you remember from last week, that I spent a lot of time on to say, I want that part in game to be better. You're correct that two of the false starts were, checking a play, going from one to another potentially. And that is part of what we do. So the more discipline, the more that we can practice it, the better we'll get at it. And so doing it in the game-like environments, with noise, without noise, all of those, we'll continue to do that because there's a lot, that we want to work on, but that in specific, the pre-snap, like making sure we get that right, that's really important. And we're gonna work our ass off to get that right.
Thank you.
Scott.
Hey, Dan, tell the truth Monday, everything on the table. Do you feel like the coaching staff and the players are much more receptive after a win like that?
Scott, it's an awesome question. I'm glad you brought it up because we really try to treat them both the same. And it is human nature after a loss to dig in, to go to where you're going. But it's honestly why we do it after the wins as well, to have the same accountability after the win as you do after the loss. And the dangerous part, if you don't do those, Scott, where you don't make those corrections, that it can just kind of get swept under the rug. And then before long, you're missing on some things. So we try to make sure we're going to stay even keeled, just knowing that like the whole thing for us is about getting better. And if we can do that over and over again, that's a big deal. And I do think, this first month in the NFL, it's a race to see who can improve the fastest because everybody's now got their team, they're doing their stuff together. So, yeah, I'd like to say we can learn, on the days where we win as much as the days that we don't. It's definitely, you're right, though. It's human nature when you make a mistake or something. I'm not going to do that again. Well, you still make mistakes when you win. We're just fortunate that we're sitting here today talking about this many penalties and still winning.
Yeah.
So there's a lesson there as well.
And I don't think anybody asked you after the game yesterday. It was a pretty big win for you personally because that was your first win as an NFL head coach since 2019. How gratifying was that for you personally to get that win?
Honestly, I was last week I was so looking forward to it for the guys, Scott. They had put so much in. So when we didn't deliver in Tampa, I was really bummed, man. I was really down. And so to be able to, hey, we're coming right back, getting right back to work to go do it. And then to have the win at home against a division team, that's a really big deal. We had spent some time the night before the game about the history of the NFC East and with our team and with the Giants. And as cool as that is, we get to write our own story now. And we know what the past was, and it's important to remember that to know where we want to go. But I thought to get our home win in the division, that having a first one there, like it was awesome, man.
David Aldridge.
And what did you think of Jaden's process at the line of scrimmage, reading the box, seeing where the overloads were, reading the safety maybe, and making the decision to either hand off or go to the throws?
Yeah, he's really got a lot of poise to him, Dave. And the reason I say that, decisions, he's very cool under it. There will definitely be some plays that he would like to have back in terms of staying in a progression, remaining a passer longer. And he's got the ability, so when he gets outside the pocket, he can still threaten the line of scrimmage and rip it down the field. When we start doing that as well, it'll open up even more big plays because the defender can't come on and converge where when he scrambles outside the pocket, he's going to be a runner in that space. So the ability to be dual threat when you're outside the pocket, that's a big deal. And fortunately for him, that is something that he does well. And we've seen it a bunch at practice. And as we're going into our second game and moving forward, I do think that's going to be one part of the game that you're really going to see take off for him is remaining a passer, putting his eyes down the field first and making some plays that way too.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Candy.
Good afternoon, Coach. Jamin Davis was a healthy scratch yesterday. Just a little insight on the decision to make him inactive yesterday.
You got it, Candy. We actually put up 5 defensive tackles. We knew we were going to have like a pitch count, so to speak, on Johnny Newton. And so we felt with him 12 to 15 reps for his first game, we needed an extra big guy in the rotation for that game. So it was more by design. If Johnny was going to be up, then we were going to add an extra practice squad player up to have 5 defensive tackles as opposed to 5 DNs based on the limited playing time for Johnny. So that was by design.
Okay, and after watching the film, I know you've talked about the running backs and of course the 7 field goals, but who else really stood out to you in yesterday's game?
I thought I'll give you two things. One is the first one I would say Zach Ertz. I thought he just made some impactful plays in this game. He's thoughtful. He's knows how to get open. He can find the spots in the zones. He made some big plays for us. And then the other spot is on defense. And I thought Wagner and Luvu looked like a pair of linebackers that were square. They tackled, they blitzed, they just felt like they were in connection and concert together, Candy. And so those two, I really felt Frankie's physicality. There was a big hit early on one of the plays to Neighbors on the very first drive that he had a long catch and run, and you just saw Frankie hauling ass and going to get into the tackle. But he brings a lot of energy, not just to this team, but to the entire building. I love that, what he does. And then Bobby, I just felt him square and tackling. And that was what we need from him, and he absolutely delivered. So those would be the three that I would point out to in the game.
Thanks, Coach.
You got it.
Lino.
Yeah, and obviously the Austin Seibert story with 7 field goals is great. I'm wondering, as a coach, when you know this is a week-to-week business, how long does that buy him as a kicker in terms of having a game like that?
Well, I think just as your first game goes, you wouldn't have thought, somebody would, give 7 shots at it. But what I did tell him, you really delivered in this first moment with the team. It's not easy to be dropped down into a locker room and get going. But what he did establish right away, that he's somebody to be counted upon. And so, as you said earlier, like, we're in a performance business and that all counts. But man, you couldn't have had a better start than him to not only hit the ones early, but to hit the game winner to go. So we were certainly impressed by him.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Liam.
Hi, Coach. You joked earlier about that you're on to Cincinnati after you do some self-scouting. You have a lot of rookies on this team. This is going to be their first NFL primetime game. How do you prepare them for that moment on Monday night in Cincinnati?
Well, Liam, we try to keep as much as we can the same exact way. And so even with the game being on Monday night, we shift our entire schedule back one day. And so what would normally be as a Wednesday will be on a Thursday this week, and on and on and on all the way through. But the process of how we play and how we prepare, whether we're at Cincinnati or here or, wherever that is, or down in Tampa, we want to make sure the process stays the same. And if you can stay consistent, Liam, in that preparation and all it takes to go into it every single week, then what you can expect is then better performances, as you're going. But no different approach and no different, standards for how we'll play. We have to have our attitude, ready to battle on the road and being able to handle noise and all of that with 2 of these games coming back to back.
Thanks, Coach.
You got it.
We'll finish with USA 9.
Hey, Coach. I know we talked ad nauseum already about Austin's day yesterday, but there has to be something said about being able to wake up in the morning and kind of have that weight off your shoulders to know that you have a guy that can do that. Is that something you could speak to?
Yeah, I absolutely can. And going into, I thought first to recognize Adam and Lance and the personnel department, to say that they've been digging and finding and looking and just not going to back off in terms of the competing of what it would take to find it. And so Austin was somebody that we had spoke about a while back, even all the way back when we were at New York and New Jersey practicing against them and playing the Jets. So he was somebody that had just been on our radar, knowing that they had a good kicker in Greg Zuerlein. So if he was somebody that was going to be available, then he was somebody that we were going to consider. What does it mean to deliver for the team? A lot, because we've been up and down in this spot of our special teams. I love the energy and the toughness that our special teams bring. So this is kind of the last piece, to stir the drink a little bit, to make sure. I love the kickoff side. I was bummed that Austin didn't get the touchdown, but we're going to be a factor on special teams, the way we run, the way we hit. And so this was a really important piece to know that he can be counted on in those moments. So yeah, it's a really big deal.
Thanks, Coach.
You got it.
Awesome. Thanks, Coach.
All right, you guys have a good one.
Thank you.